This is Priority Value Investments Incorporated, aka PVI, the number 4U org presents Forward. That's what we're about. We're about moving forward in life, whatever life situation that comes your way. We talk about how we go about moving forward past those issues. I'm the founder and CEO of Priority Value Investments, and let's see, I have a business partner. He's not here today, unfortunately. He couldn't make it, Mike James, but he'll be back next week. We're a nonprofit real estate organization, I should say, and that's what we do for, and this is sort of, I guess you would say, our more like a fundraiser for the project, and we build homes for veterans. Our goal is to build a veterans community. That's what we want to do. That's our ultimate goal, is to do that. And we had talked about doing that in the city of Prairie View, Texas, which is about 140 miles. No, I'm sorry, which is about 40 miles from Houston, Texas, and that's our goal, to be able to set up, and ultimate goal is to be able to set that up. And we're not talking about a community center, a veterans community that, has, we're talking about family homes. We want to be able to build where a family can grow, a young veteran can grow and grow his or her family, and at an affordable rate. That's our ultimate goal. Let's see. Even though we are about veterans, this podcast is not always about veterans. We talk about life issues. It doesn't necessarily have to have anything to do with being a veteran. It just has to do with just life situations, and sometimes that can be, an illness, a loss in the family. It could be losing a loved one. It could be anything else, where you need to have to get up and move forward and progress in life. Okay. Now, today we're very lucky. We have a very special guest with us today. His name is, and if I destroy your name again, I apologize. I know we rehearsed it, but
I'm
still,
used to it. Go ahead, Hannah.
It's Patrick McIivein.
Very good.
Okay, and he is a proud U.S. veteran, Texas.
Proud out U.S. veteran.
Yeah, a proud U.S. veteran, Texas, Harris County, and Houston community leader. He does it all. I mean, I've known Patrick for years, but I did not know Patrick until I looked at his, resume, his bio here, and it just went on and on and on the wonderful achievements that he's accomplished. So, hello, Patrick. How are you today?
Presley, I'm fine. It's good to be here. You brought beautiful weather, even though we're inside.
Yeah, I know. Maybe we'll do one outside one day. So Patrick, tell us a little bit more. I know we have a long bio and so forth, and we'll kind of go through that, but tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Okay. And I'm an introvert, so when you ask questions to an introvert like that, we go blank.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I'm blonde, too. But let's see, I as I like to say, I was born in the first half of the last century, which means I'm old. I think my life story is about moving forward, about making it through challenges. I was born in Temple, Texas. My mother my mother worked at Scott and White Hospital. She was also, let me brag about my mother for a minute. She was a lieutenant in World War II, was a nurse, stationed over in England. And if I remember my childhood stories, she worked with Dr. DeBakey. Really? And helping to set up field hospitals. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but if I remember things, of course, kids and we hear things and we kind of change them. But yes, they worked on field MASH, mobile units in Wales. And so anyway, so that's Mother. She's a Yankee. But she was working at Scott and White Hospital when I was born. The story I like to say is that she went into labor, had me, got up and went back to work. That is Mother, and that's her movement, and that is her constant also going forward. My father was also World War II veteran, cavalry. He and Mother, were not married very long. But at 18 months of age, my mother, who is now a single mom of 2 children, I have an older brother, decided, she realized in order to provide a better life for Mike and I, she needed to better her education. So she decided to enroll at Baylor and get her master's in clinical psychology.
Wow. Mike
and I, Mother did some good things in her life, some fantastic things. And one of those was to keep Mike and I together. Mother had 4 marriages. She was before Elizabeth Taylor. But as she said, she always married her boyfriends up until she got tired of that. And then anyways, it's not about Mother, it's about me. So Mike and I went to live with legal guardians. I'm 18 months of age. And Mike and I are with Mary and Pete until I'm 5. At 5, Mother moves us all with her 4th husband this time up to Rhode Island because her father had died. So we wanted to live she wanted to be by her mother. Right. So we moved to Warwick, Rhode Island. Lived there for 5 years until I was 10, and then moved back to Waco. And then all kinds of challenging things happened. We'll go forward until when I volunteered for the Navy in 1969. And then I got discharged in 72. And then I entered in Galveston, and so you're released from your discharge in the same city that you joined in, although even though it was Galveston, it was considered Houston, so got discharged here. What else? Let's see. Then I started in freight forwarding. Then I got involved in politics and volunteering. And then I started, which we'll talk about later, the Walk for Mental Health Awareness. Yeah. And so that gives us here to today.
Wow, that is great. Well, I don't know. It's what keeps you moving forward? What keeps you going forward?
Fear.
Fear?
Well, partially. Anxiety. I mean, this is a truthful program here in which we're talking about veterans and mental health, right? Which is very dear to me. So yes, moving forward, fear of being left behind, fear of not knowing something, and also nosiness. You know, I am a composite of many feelings and awareness, and so I always want to see what's around the corner. I always want to know what's going to happen. And just something about we as humans, well, all species, but we particularly evolve. Right. We keep evolving. We keep moving forward. And I would wish that all humans move forward in a positive, enlightened way. Right. Sadly, Presley, you and I know from our life experiences that that's not always the case. But mainly wanting to see what's around the corner and afraid that I'll miss it. Really? Yeah.
I don't know. See, I haven't never felt like I was going to miss anything. And I'm just not going to miss it. And if I did miss it, it wasn't important enough for me to know in the first place. Let's see. I'm trying to make sure. Tell me about the military experience.
Good and bad. As I said, I joined in June or May of 69. I thought I joined the Navy. My family was all Army. My great uncle, World War I. My mother and father, World War II.
Right.
My brother, Vietnam, and then me, Vietnam. But they were all Army, and they told me horrible stories about boot camp, about having to get woken up at 3 in the morning, at 4 in the morning, and carry some 5,000-pound backpack. And honey, that's not for me. No, I needed my beauty rest. So I joined the Navy, and it was '69. So I got all these free bell bottoms. And the winter blues really do look good in those 13 or 14 buttons. So I went in the Navy, went to Orlando. My experience, I just want to thank every veteran that has served, that has answered the country's call, and has served during a wartime. I was so blessed in that I never went to Vietnam. My brother did go over. He did serve over there. He did carry a gun. He did shoot. I see the faces of veterans at the VA Michael DeBakey Hospital, and to hear things, and I'm just. I was a blessed life all the way through. I went to Basic in Orlando, Florida. It was a brand new facility. It has since closed, and I actually think I think that's where part of Disney World is now. I'm not sure. But yes, it was a very like a college campus, air-conditioned dormitories, all brand new. Then I went to A school in Norfolk, Virginia, was a communications yeoman. Received a level 4 classified top secret clearance. Was first stationed in Washington, D.C. It's not that I've been to many nation's capitals, but of course being partial to America. I mean, I think our Washington, D.C. is just beautiful. Yeah. I was stationed at Fort Myer, which is tri-service, Army, Navy, Air Force. And then I went to, I got stationed to Morocco. Rode the Marrakesh Express, which was not an express. It stopped at every little town going to Marrakesh. Got discharged, and we can go into that later because it was for the good of the country, honorable discharge. Then went back to Houston, Galveston area, and started in the import-export, working for import-export.
Wow. So you participated in the first March on Washington, D.C., lesbian and gay rights.
Yes.
What was that like?
Phenomenal, empowering, beautiful. It was a fantastic time. Just after Stonewall. And my mother went too, by the way. We went separately. Hello. Okay. I'm into dancing. And I'm sorry. But no. So, yes, it was phenomenal. There were about 6 of us from here in Houston. We drove. I was working for Raymond International over in the Galleria area at the time. When we got there, it was, 20 to a room? We thought, God, is anybody going to be here? What's going to be like? The day was beautiful. And so there was I think it's called a corral, sort of a holding area where people start gathering. And just as we started walking towards that, first you see some people, 1 or 2 coming from the left, 3 or 4 from the right, and you see more behind you. Yeah. And your little group of 6 has grown into 100,000. Wow. And to be able to see 100,000 plus people like me, like us, right, together, exactly, in every genre, in every flaming presentation, in every macho presentation, in all of our colors, was so empowering to see and to be there. It was a very liberating time just after Stonewall in, and we had just done the Anita Bryant protest here in Houston town hall meeting. And let me go back to my mother. 99 parents gathered in Washington, D.C. because they started parent support groups in their cities, and they came and they met. I believe it was a Saturday in a church building, and wanted to talk about if there's a need to form a national organization. Mother's group here in Houston was called FLAG, Family and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. They met, 99 of them, and they, of course, decided yes. And so they chose the name of a group that was active in New York. Let me back. Ironically, on the East Coast, West Coast, and Gulf Coast, all three coasts, started family support groups all within about 2 or 3 years of each other, and none of them knowing.
Wow.
None of it. It's just the timing was in the universe. But they decided to go with the name of a group in New York called PFLAG.
Right.
And so, as I say, my mother came back to Houston, dropped one of the F's, added a P, and you had PFLAG. So, yes, my mother was there with us. They marched. It was just empowering all the way from that.
Oh, that's wonderful. That is wonderful.
I'm old.
That is not the way you want to put that. You're achieved.
Vintage, honey.
Vintage. Okay. Now I wanted to find out about what got you into you're heavily into volunteering. You know, what inspired you to do that?
Well, when you're rich like me. Not. I have a non-service connected disability pension, which means that I get food stamps. I get so much money from the VA. I get help with my rent because I get such a huge pension. And it's non-service connected. That's a stigma. That's a challenge. Non-service means I have a mental disability, depression. That I am not healthy to work. So if I do get a job on the outside, I love our government. We have one of the best in the world, our freedoms and things, but that's not always, you don't always like your parents.
Right.
And so to speak, a government is like a parent. So with the government, because it's non-service connected, if I make $1 outside, they take $1 away from my pension. Ooh. So I volunteer. I'm a professional volunteer. I started in politics politics, and if you're a long-time Houstonian, or even if you're not, learn about it. It was when I first went to it, it was called Main Street Festival. Then it was the Houston Festival, and then it was the Houston International Festival, and it's no longer here. But I was involved with that for about 10 years. I was involved with the Houston Lesbian Gay Political Caucus back when it was just the GPC. Served on the board there and volunteer coordinator for committee and fundraising. And many, many others. So, yeah.
I like the way you move forward. Let's see. Where do we want to go? Why don't we go with let's tell us about the walk on
Walk for Mental Health Awareness. Let me back up because I didn't go into full detail about when you asked about military experience. Top secret clearance level 4. This is way before Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Yeah.
Inactive, aware, very active in the gay community. Well, at that time, going to the discos and things. I also had a job at one of the hottest bars in D.C. at that time. Okay. And it was just, God, the atmosphere was just phenomenal. But there was a group of us. We know who we are, and of course back then you really had to be very careful. About people finding out. I mean, it really freaked out one guy when I was stationed in Fort Myer, in D.C., Arlington. A guy came into my room. I mean, there's 4 people to a room,
right?
And it's like, hello. I mean, no one else was there, but I freaked out.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know what he was on or what he was doing, but it sort of startled at the very least. But anyways, there was a group of about 50 of us on the base at Fort Myer, and if you wanted out under a sexual clause, you had to admit to having sex with a couple of other veterans. So Fort Myer Tri-Service means Army, Navy, Air Force were all there. So two or three gentlemen in this group of us that we were aware named just about all of us. I was being transferred to Morocco at the time, Kenitra, and so I thought, God, everything's fine. I'm getting out before the investigation gets started. But I'm in Kenitra, and it's ruled by a king, monarchy, and we're guests. The Navy is guest at the Royal Air Force, and we're not there. Our military presence is not there, even though we landed. You have a Pan Am was in business at that time, and you have a plane landing in Kenitra. I believe it was dark. Maybe 100 or so young men, late teens, early 20s, crew cut haircuts, duffel bags, maroon passports, which are official, but we can't be in uniform,
Right.
Because we're not supposed to be there. I mean, hello, you don't even have to be with a secret agency to know that. Okay, it looks like military, but anyway, so we were there, and we had a guest of the king, and there was some stupid duty. And I'm not going to do that. So I didn't do the duty that was required. And I was called out, taken to a room, and that's what I thought I was going to get on the carpet for not doing this duty. And they said, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
Okay.
I was then taken to a room like you see in all these not all TV shows, but with the one-way mirror and the soundproof things. And I'm kind of freaking out.
Okay.
And so, yes, it was the investigation had started in D.C. I guess because of my clearance level, I'm not sure why, or they just wanted to do as someone calls it, a witch hunt. We won't say names. Number 45. So it was challenging. They brought a lawyer in, and he had to have been supportive. He had to have been friendly, because he said, whatever you do, do not help them. If they ask you to open your locker, don't. Let them cut it off. Don't be of any support, assistance, or whatever. And so I did that. And the final decision was that for the good of the country, my services were no longer required. But it was honorable. So that was kind of okay. Kind of. But so that was my military, a good of the country pension. Ironic how things that happened then were setting up to serve me, to empower me down the road.
Right.
So that was, I just wanted to go
I've
back.
never heard anything like that before.
Well,
that's
that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
And so the walk for mental health awareness. I was a late bloomer. I started the walk. I'm 72 now.
Before you go, going into the mental health issue, was the release from the military part of what?
No, I mean that was in 72.
Yeah. Okay.
No, and you know I think maybe because I volunteered is why I partially got honorable. Because I never messed. I'm no dumb blonde. You don't mess with enlisted persons.
Yeah.
If you're going to mess around, mess with someone who has something to lose. That means an officer.
Wow.
Anyways, back to
mental health.
to the walk and mental illness. I inherited from both of my parents, I believe, aspects, propensity for mental illness diagnosis. And what we know now to be empowering of a child to help a child move forward. Mother didn't know back in 52. I was born in 49. I said mother knew that in order to provide for her 2 young sons, she needed a better job. They said that I was at the terrible twos, getting into stuff and doing things and needed supervision. I still need supervision. But so mother found guardians. I love mother that she kept Mike and I together.
Right.
Through everything. My brother, my 2-year older brother, who this also got forced onto him. He became my father, my mother, my brother. He was the only constant in my life for my first 13 years.
Wow.
We lived with guardians from about 2 months until 5. My mother comes and visits periodically. And, you know, as children, we think what we see in front of us is the way it is.
Right.
It's natural. It's normal. It's you know, Dr. Pepper was only made in Belmead, Texas. Vanilla ice cream was only made in Belmead, Texas. I thought every child had 2 mommies and 2 daddies. When my mother and her husband, her 3rd husband and her 4th husband, not the same time, but we came to visit, and I really... Mommy, Mary, I later called my guardians Mary and Pete. But back then, Mary would answer. I said, no, Mommy, not you. This Mommy. What we now know is that a child bonding, nurturing is so important during the first 3 years, if not longer, but particularly the first 3 years.
Right.
So any bonding that I started with my mother got cut at 18 months, 2 years of age. And I start with this other mommy from 2 years until 5. So that's age 5. And then my mother comes back in full-time, and we moved to Rhode Island. So any bonding that I started with, that I had stopped with mother, started with Mary. Now I'm stopping with Mary to bond again with my mother and her husband up to Rhode Island. Right. And I'm there until 5 years, and we moved back to Waco, actually Belmead, but no one knows where Belmead is. It has the worst water in the world. So abandonment issues? Hello? Yes. Terrible abandonment issues. Many things happened during those first 13 years. Right. My coming out was rather traumatic, rather violent, aware of I think all of us, Florida. What Florida did in that Don't Say Gay bill is atrocious.
It's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
People ask, why does so-and-so need to say their sexual orientation? Why does so-and-so have to say this? And that bill is why. Yeah. Is one of the reasons. The more that people can be who they are. And we know, I knew in the 3rd grade, I knew in the 2nd grade, that guy was the hot-looking guy, and I wanted to be near him. And we don't know at that age what it is, right? But we know that we enjoy being in the presence of that. So, yeah, very early I was aware. Yeah. And because of my upbringing, very dysfunctional, very unconventional, I was having sex early with older men.
And what's early?
12, 13. I worked as a car hop at that time up there in Waco or Belmead. And this gentleman, as I was turning in an order, he was in the rest inside. And our eyes caught. anyways, about 5 minutes later, he's in the the car hop section.
Right.
And so we start talking, and one thing leads to another. Because I have this deep voice, you know. Ain't nothing hiding over here. I love when people say, "Oh, you have a San Francisco accent." Yeah, sure. So, anyways, he and I started messing around, and at that time there was Belle Meade was set up predominantly for an air base. What was it called? Well, unimportant. And so he and I started messing around, and I couldn't go into bars, but he, for some reason, would go to this one establishment. I would wait in the car, and I got to look, and I'm nosy. I want to see what's around that corner, even though it terrifies me. So I looked in the glove box, and there was a letter from his from his lover. So I wrote his lover.
You wrote him?
I wrote him. I'm taking care of him now.
Oh, no. At 13?
You no longer need to worry about it. He called. The gentleman that I was sort of dating, messing around with, called the house, threatened to kill me, and got me all scared and crying. And so that's the traumatic coming out experience. My guardians, I mean, you know, at this time in the 50s, Central Texas Bible Belt, Methodist, Baptist really weren't that different. Just so conservative and very whatever. So my guardian, Pete, gets on the phone, calls my mother and says, you know, come get your queer son. We love him, but he's going to hell. So that was some of the challenges and stuff. So back to the walk, issues that I inherited. And finally at age 60, after therapy, many years of therapy, I'm still going. In fact, I go tomorrow at the Montrose Center. I realized that there were other people who had not yet understood or come in contact with that every human being has birthrights. And a couple of those is the right to be here, the right to be heard, and the right to be loved, the right to be empowered. And so I saw a website. So I'm very spiritual. I'm not so much God. God is one.
Yes.
And I think God's a covering for people who can't believe in multiples. But I'm spiritual.
Right.
The spirits guided me to a website. It was called The Walk from St. Louis to Washington, D.C. for Depression Awareness. It was something like a 55-day walk. I don't remember. But I could not participate because I couldn't be gone from my volunteer activities here in Houston that long. But if you raised X amount of dollars, you could go. And so I'm blessed that I have a band of sisters, like the Brother Band of Brothers. I have a band of sisters that have, if they weren't not there for me back in those difficult years, Presley, you and I would not be talking. I would, the support, the financial, the empowerment. So I had the funds raised within 10 minutes. I went, the gentleman who would put in the walk together, Steve, he and I started corresponding via email. It was like two lost brothers. I get to D.C. To take part in my second march on D.C., first for gay rights and now for mental health. He said, would you bring a chapter of the depression awareness to Houston? And I said yes. And so I got my band of sisters and other people together. We had a meeting. Steve came down, brought the charter. We signed it. And so for a few weeks, we became the first chapter of the Walk for Depression Awareness. There was a slight change after the original walk in D.C. His board met and wanted to be more inclusive with mental health. And so they decided to drop depression awareness and change it to mental health.
Right.
So that's why the Walk for Depression Awareness became the Walk for Mental Health Awareness. Ironically, Presley, this person, even at 60, would not have had the guts, would not have had the balls, would not have had the strength to put a walk together. I assure you, I could not. But since Steve had sort of all had the foundation, I just sort of copied it. Came to Houston. We did our walk in 2010. Steve came here. He and I had a falling out, a disagreement. He went back to St. Louis and he folded. The walk in St. Louis was 3 years old, well established, and doing quite well.
Right.
And then he folded his St. Louis into the ground, got rid of it. I cannot help but believe that the spirits put me on track to meet Steve, put me on track to be aware of many issues with mental health, and guided me to create the Walk for Mental Health Awareness. I would never have done that on my own. A low self-esteem gay male, very proud in public.
Right.
I just wouldn't have done it. And yet here we are now. The Walk is an all-volunteer nonprofit that raises funds. We produce a 5K walk, and we invite local area nonprofits that offer mental health services to use our venue as a fundraiser for themselves. We also have a children's corner. Children, toddlers up to 15 get in free because we want them and their parents there.
Right.
I want to prevent, as you want homes for veterans, I want to help children not have to experience the challenges, the stigma, the trauma that I went through, that I lived through. So we had the Children's Corner. We have age-appropriate events, toddlers to 5, 6 to 10, and then 10 to 15. And we also, as you are about moving forward, the walk, we don't have a finish line because we're not about finishes. We're about moving forward. We're about having breakthroughs. So we have the Arc of Breakthrough. I patterned it after the idea of the Arc of Triumph. Still triumph, victory, victorious. But in mental illness, it's about having breakthroughs. And so our arc is about 12 feet wide, 10 feet high. And it is about being empowered for the first time to say publicly, I am challenged with a mental illness. And it is just phenomenal to see the people walk through that as they approach it, the smiles on their faces, the tears in their eyes, the excitement, and the fist pumping of, yes, I did it, yes, I've done it, I am here, I'm not queer, but I have mental illness. I mean, it's almost the same thing as that. And we have medals that we drape them with. And every year we have a special word that somehow comes to me, and an affirmation follows. And because mental illness, many of us feel that we don't exist, that people look through us, people look around us. And so I tell my volunteers to drape the medal once they pass. Make eye contact. Let them know that for that moment, for those few seconds, that they existed and that you love them for their individuality, for their uniqueness, for their humankind. There are some people with mental illness who do not want to be touched. So I share with my fellow volunteers, if anyone gives a sign, just hand them the medal. Presley, in 11 years, no one has ever refused to be draped with our medal. Which I think it speaks about this, the safety, the security, the comfort of the area. Also, we don't have a food court. There's no junk food. We have a nutrition court because it is about healthy food, healthy diet, healthy mind. It's all connected. And so I look for restaurants that have healthy menus and ask for donations. Through the 10 years, I believe the walk has raised close to maybe $150,000, and it has dispersed through the Legacy Health Clinic, the Montrose Center, HGI, Houston Galveston Institute, other nonprofits that Fort Bend Clubhouse.
Now I have a question. What is considered a mental health issue? I mean, because I go through depression.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Is it sustained? I mean, there are there were about 350 diagnoses, which makes it, I believe, one of the largest classifications of a disease or illness. So there are tests to be done. Mine is depression, major depression, anxiety, abandonment syndrome, PTSD, not from my time in the service, but from sexual attacks. I was first raped at 15.
Ooh,
And then again at 18. And it wasn't until I was 35 that I realized I had been raped. The first time at 15, this guy was handsome.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have sex with him, but not right now. I'm working. I was a bellman. I said, let me get off work and come back. And so we had this fight, this actual physical struggle of pushing. I said, if it's worth having, it's worth waiting for. If it's worth having, it's worth having now. Give it to me. And so, I mean, we were, for a 15-year-old, I thought it was a struggle. It was a fight. I just finally got tired. I said, okay, let's just get this over with. Anyways, that's an issue that I don't want to talk about. But so there are over 150 diagnoses now, unfortunately, Presley, with this pandemic, that we are now entering our third year with other things that are going on, with the war in Ukraine, with Texas, with our deep freeze a couple of years ago, with the flooding. There is a tsunami of mental illness happening worldwide, particularly in the Gulf Coast region. There, in fact, in the last 2 years have been 3 new diagnoses of mental illness, almost totally related to COVID and the prolonged deaths and grief and uncertainty. So there are tests. I would encourage anyone to get evaluated. Veterans, go to the Michael E. DeBakey. I know some veterans have issues about going to a VA hospital and seeing other veterans. Contact, and I know that they do mental health counseling over the computer. One of the good things about this pandemic, if there can be, is that it has pretty much really blossomed the, what do you call it, iPad video things.
Right.
So yes, veterans, reach out. There is help. You're not alone. No one has to go through this alone. Name it, claim it. When we name our challenges, when we name a part of ourselves, my mental illness is part of me. It is always going to, because I inherited it, and because of issues that happened as a child. When as children we absorb everything. Right. We don't know how to cope. We don't know what's going on, so we make things up. And of course, my childhood, from moving from my mother to my guardians, to my mother to my guardians, a lot of issues. So it's best to get evaluated and treated. Name it, claim it, do it. You're on the right step to move forward, to break through.
Now, I got another question. Now, what about, let's say,
I don't know.
I'm a young military person. Let's say there's a young military person. Maybe they came back from Afghanistan. They're coming back, and they see going to see a counselor or going to see anyone about any type of mental issue as a weakness. Oh no, I'm not crazy, and that it's that type of thing. Because I grew up with people like that, and so how would you reach someone like that?
Coming out, identifying as gay publicly, for some is easier than identifying that I have a mental illness. Yes, the stigma. Mental illness is one of the oldest diseases. It is a disease. It's an illness, not a weakness, first off. But it was first written about when humans started recording time back in Mesopotamia. Especially since you're African American and male, there is a stigma
Oh, very much so.
Go to church, pray it out. Let God's hands heal you, brother, sister. Hispanic community, machismo. Men don't cry. Men don't show emotion. Those things that we are indoctrinated with as children.
Right.
It's a lie. It's not true.
Right.
We have feelings. It's not just women that have feelings. We have feelings all the way through. We need to acknowledge. We need to let go of those chains, if you will, that have been binding us with this restricted way of acting. As I say, people have said me and my San Francisco accent. To look at me, I'm blessed. Presley, I'm male, born male, born white male, born white male, blue eyes, born white male, blue eyes, blonde hair. You look at me and doors open. I can get by. As soon as I open my mouth, I lose some of that credibility because I don't. Another discrimination is not having that deep voice, masculine voice.
Who you telling? Who you talking to?
Have you been? But have you ever been told you have a San Francisco accent?
I've never.
And
never
if someone
gotten
did,
that
what would you think they're telling you?
I've never gotten that before, but I know what you're talking about, and I know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But no, I've never gotten that before.
See,
Never gotten that before.
So it's challenging. Veterans, contact Michael E. DeBakey, contact Houston Galveston Institute, contact Mental Health America. Google these here in Houston. It is our time. It is our time to get active. It is our time to vote. We have some important stuff coming up.
Okay, now talk about the election, because you take care of that too, amongst your many other talents
as
and
you know,
volunteer services.
Yes, I have asked you to be part of my crew. Fortunately, with my VA pension, as I said, if I work outside, the government takes $1, unless the job is classified to the government as community service. Elections, because I started, you volunteered. You volunteered to work on election day. Elections are classified as community service, thus income is non-earned income. So now, and we now get paid nicely, just not all the time.
Right.
So I work early voting and have for about 30 years. Voting,
30 years.
Early voting, and now there's not been early voting for 30 years, but ever since we've had it,
Right.
I've been working early voting. And election day, yes, for about 30 years. I was office director for Sue Schechter for her first 2 years when she was chair of Harris County Democrats. I was administrative assistant to John Odom back in the 80s when he was chair of the Harris County Democratic Party. Elections are so important. We have a voice. Again, people with mental illness think that we don't have a voice, but we do. We have a birthright to be heard. I think that talk about big blocks of voting. If we would organize and register to vote, I think that we could really be the most powerful swing vote of any group out there. Our numbers are humongous worldwide, but especially
And when you're talking
here.
about our, what we're talking about, when you say the word our.
Yes, yeah.
We're talking about who?
I mean, we're those who are challenged with mental illness.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Vote. There's an election. I believe it's too late to get registered for the March primary that's going to be in May, but there is a very important midterm election in November, countrywide. We may not get rid of certain people in Texas, but we don't want a "don't say gay" type
we don't want
bill
that.
here. And Governor Abbott has already had that transgender where he can go after parents who take care of physical health of their transgender kids.
No.
Vote. HarrisVotes.com. HarrisVotes.com.
HarrisVote.com?
HarrisVotes.com.
Okay, HarrisVote.com.
You can register. You can find now in Harris County. You at early voting, you can go to any of the 50 some odd locations. There will not be for the runoff because there were not We weren't good for the runoff. We had a low turnout, so there are less. But there's about 30 spaces, locations that you can vote. You don't have to live in that precinct. You just have to be registered in the county in which you're voting. Fort Bend County registered voters have to vote in Fort Bend, Brazorio, and Brazorio. Harris County, we can go anywhere, not just in Houston, but you can go anywhere within Harris County to vote. November election is coming up.
Okay, that's great. Now, I wanted to say something to you, Patrick, because you and I met at a very unusual place, I guess you'd say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
A couple of weeks ago, I did a podcast talking about the fact that I'm HIV positive, that I'm a black gay man living with HIV positive. Yes, I know it's, but that was the most wonderful thing, and I've been wanting to do that for years. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do it is because I wanted to thank people like you. Because it was people like you that made me be here today. People who gave of themselves. And I truly, truly appreciate it. And I want to say thank you.
I hear you and I feel you. I see it. Yes, that is why it is so important to empower folks to realize who they are.
Yes.
Name it, claim it, and you have taken steps forward. Getting through breakthroughs. So needed. So needed.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Well, we got to get ready to wrap this puppy up. And we didn't get a chance to go through all of your
I guess I got to
awards
come
and
back
titles.
for another thing.
Oh, you definitely do.
With my 72 years of experience. Miss Kontiki. We didn't talk about Miss Kontiki when I won in Galveston.
Oh, well, tell us about that.
Well, no, that's when the story. But you're speaking to royalty, honey.
Oh, really?
Yes. But,
Well, I knew that already.
Again, it's don't say gay. When I was coming out, the philosophy was you're either butch or femme.
Uh-huh.
If you're butch, you're the man. If you're femme, you're the woman.
Uh-huh.
If you're feminine, you're the woman. You do feminine things.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have role models. My role models were Miss USA, Miss America. Honey, I can walk a runway.
Uh-huh.
I have one of the best sachets that there is. And that's a shame. I am so proud of our young LGBTQ folks who are willing to publicly, this is me. I am breaking through. I'm breaking that stigma. I am coming forward. I can be gay and a football player. I can be gay in rugby. I can be gay and be a president.
Yeah.
Gay, okay, LGBT, all of that. But at my age, it wasn't. So yes.
I got to say something on that, too, because when I was a kid, you know, 6th grade, junior high or whatever, I liked baseball. I loved baseball, and I was pretty good at it. And for some reason in the back of my mind, I knew I was gay, but I said, well, I can't be gay and be a baseball player at the same time, you know? And so I kind of like gave it up and think I didn't belong there, so forth and so on, and think, well, there's something different about me. Maybe I'm just not, I didn't want to be in that atmosphere and get, you know, teased and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I gave it up, but I've always loved baseball. Yes.
Those men in uniforms. Yes, that is bullying. That's why, Presley, my education is 9th grade.
Uh-huh.
That's as high as I went.
Really? That actually surprises me because you're such a well-read person.
I fake it. And it's not all fake. Yes, my education has been street.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways it's more valuable, but there's nothing, unfortunately, I don't do things conventionally. I'm trying to do an event for World Mental Health Day in 2023 because it'll be the 31st year. People here in Houston know pretty much that December 1st is World AIDS Day. Houston has done a major event for several years on December 1st. We have never, ever done an October 10th. World Mental Health Day. I am working on trying to bring that together so that Houston can do a first major public acknowledgement about World Mental Health Day.
Well, how
October
can
10th.
someone help you achieve that?
Well, I can't say look at the screen. But my email address,
There you go.
please, is the letter C, as in my first name, but it's C.Patrick. I'm old, so it's Patrick, followed by the numbers 8113 at yahoo.com. C.Patrick.
You have business cards?
Not with me, but yes. C.Patrick
But what you're going to do is
8113.
you're going to send me one of those business cards, and then by the time we get ready to edit this, we'll put your business card up, and then that way.
Oh, because this is a video.
Right.
This is video.
Yeah.
Where's the
And-
camera? Again? That meant, Presley, your makeup guy never showed up. The green room, I can't find it. But thank you, Presley. Thank you for allowing freedom of democracy, freedom of expression, freedom to talk.
Yeah. Well, I truly enjoyed that our talk today. It's
And
been
I get my
wonderful.
$10 million check when?
Yes, it's in the mail. But you know how the mail system works. so-
Yes, yes. Thanks to number 45.
Well, let's see. Let me go over the thing. Let me do this real quick before
Okay.
I
I think you
get
have
our
stuff
talk
to do.
Yeah, I have stuff that I have to speak on to make sure we keep everything in order.
To go find new stuff.
Yeah. We spoke a little bit about the 501c3. We got it early. We got it during COVID, so forth and so on. And many of our supporters had, moved on by the time because of COVID. They kind of moved on and just kind of like said, we're going to hold on to our money. And then a lot of the organizations that we would go to for help were closed down. So we were kind of stuck and had no one that we could talk to or contact. And so we're kind of starting all over from scratch. One of the things that we're working on right now is we're doing a crowdfunding program. We're going to do that. We should have that together within the next, hopefully, couple of weeks or so. We're going to start doing a little bit of crowdfunding, and we'll talk to you a little bit more about that and let you know where you can go to be able to offer assistance in any way that you can. We have a website. You can go to our website. Our website is PVI, and it's the number 4. It's on the screen, but I always like to say it. PVI, the number 4, U.org. O-R-G. You can go there and take a look at our website and find out a little bit more about what we're about and so forth. And we're going to be, let's see, the audience inspired. I think we've covered everything. That's good enough. We've done well today. Thank you, Patrick, for coming in and speaking to us and sharing your life with us, a little bit of your life story with us.
Well, Presley, thank you for reaching out and for letting me be one of your first few guests. I'm looking at your logo here, and I'm loving your tagline, especially a video podcast on how we choose. So important.
Yes.
Choose to overcome the odds. It is a choice.
It is a choice.
It is a
I
choice
agree.
on being public, acknowledging, but it's also making that choice. It's an empowerment.
Yes. I'm not good at wallowing. All right. Well, thank you so much. And we'll see our audience next week.
Bye, audience. Bye, Presley.
Thank y'all for listening. All right. Bye-bye.